What up, motherfuckers? It's your boy, the hater, up in this bitch. Totally forgot to make a video yesterday. You know what I'm saying? I burned my hand, and I had to take care of that, so I totally forgot. So I guess I'll make an extra video at some point during Hatermania, motherfuckers. So, without further ado, though, let's get into today's video, which is going to be 25 reasons why The Miz rules. This has been a video that's been requested several times by several people through several ways. So, I'm happy to make it. I personally love The Miz. I think The Miz is like one of the most underrated wrestlers of all time. You know? And the facts are what the facts are, motherfucks. The Miz is objectively good. Just like everything else on this motherfuck, you know what I'm saying? We explain the reasons, right? And the reasons aren't jokes. We sit and we explain why something is good and why something is bad, objectively, and of course sometimes subjectively as well. But a lot of the things about The Miz, for example, cannot be denied. They are facts, motherfucks. Facts. Just like you can't deny that Samoa Joe is not a good wrestler because he has 4 moves, or you cannot deny that Karrion Kross has 0 character, right? You cannot deny that The Miz does have character and that he is a cool dude. So, let's get started with reason number 1, motherfucks. I will admit, reason number 1 is a low ball, alright? Let's be real. Reason number 1 is he has a gimmick. Now, I know what a lot of you are thinking. You're thinking hater. A lot of people have gimmicks. I got news for you, pal. A lot of people don't have gimmicks. You know, when I say gimmicks, I mean something that the character plays, right? A character that is played by the person that is the wrestler, I guess, right? So, for example, I would distinguish Dolph Ziggler, as an example, as someone that doesn't have a gimmick, right? I'm here to show the world. It's not a gimmick. You know, if your gimmick and personality is based on the lyrics of your entrance music, you don't have a gimmick. If, on the other hand, your entrance music is based on your catchphrase, you at least have a catchphrase, and you might have a gimmick, right? So you look at someone like Bobby Roode, right? I get what they're trying to do with him when they put him in NXT, right? I totally got it. Obviously, what they were trying to do was trying to show us, look, this motherfucker is called Bobby Roode. He thinks he's great, and he likes to say the word glorious. And his music, his entrance music, will be like that as well. Now, the dumb motherfuckers are going to just sit there and say, glorious, right? And that's all it takes for this like new age of wrestling fans, right? All it takes is one catchphrase that's stupid, and they'll just say it along, right? And then they'll convince themselves into thinking that Bobby Roode has a gimmick. He doesn't. He has the same gimmick as Dolph Ziggler. Their gimmick loosely is like, I think highly of myself, and narrowly is my entire personality is based on one word. So there you have it, motherfuckers. Whereas The Miz has had, in my opinion, multiple gimmicks, but his main gimmick is that of the Hollywood douchebag, right? He's supposed to be this guy who is an A-lister, or at least thinks he is, right? In some ways, it's a parody of like the A-list actor, right? Because he's not an A-lister, right? The whole point is, it's like tongue-in-cheek. It's as if he understands, you know what I'm saying? So, or at least understands that like he's an exaggerated version of that. So he has a gimmick, and I think that's important to note, even though I will agree, a lot of people have gimmicks. But he definitely has one. Reason number 2. This is why we need reason number 1. Because reason number 2 is his gimmick is intertwined with many of the storylines, right? This is another thing that makes a gimmick important, right? So, for example, if you look at the way The Undertaker was booked during his like original Deadman phase, right? His gimmick was relevant to all the storylines that he was in, right? When he switched to American Badass, which everyone liked because it was a fun gimmick in terms of like his mannerisms, his personality, his look, and everything else, but it wasn't ingrained in a lot of storylines. It was ingrained in some, like the storyline when Kurt Angle destroyed his bike by accident, you know? Like, things like that. But The Undertaker, the original Deadman character, he was doing all kinds of occult shit. Like, he beats up Bossman at WrestleMania and hangs him from the Hell in a Cell. You know what I'm saying? Then you have, like, he's trying to forcibly marry / sacrifice Stephanie McMahon. You know what I mean? Like, these were things that had to do with the character. Then you compare him to, like, Malachi Black or Aleister Black, right? Both versions. It's just a guy who comes out with dark music. He has, like, a mask with horns. But then he doesn't wrestle like a guy who has a mask with horns. He's just like, he just starts kicking people. And his feuds are, Cody Rhodes, I'm better than you. Right? Like, his feuds are the same kind of feuds that Dolph Ziggler would have if he joined AEW. Look, that's exactly what Dolph Ziggler would do in AEW. Same thing with Mustafa Ali. He's going to come in there. He's going to be like, Cody, I'm better than you. I represent the new America. It's going to be the same exact feud again and again, right? Same thing with Eric Rowan and Luke Harper. Same thing, in my opinion, with Bray Wyatt too. You know, he didn't do anything like until he was the Fiend, where he was doing these like swamp matches and stupid shit like that with Matt Hardy, right? Until then, he was just a guy. He's out there just fighting Kane and cutting nonsensical promos. John, anyone but you, Roman. And then he would go and like attack Roman Reigns. But who gives a fuck why he's attacking him? He's not explaining himself. He's not saying like, I'm attacking Roman Reigns because Roman Reigns represents like good and I represent evil or something like that, right? The Undertaker storylines with this gimmick were relevant. Bray Wyatt's and other people that I just mentioned were not. The Miz, they're always relevant, right? The fact that The Miz is like a Hollywood douchebag is intertwined with all the storylines, right? His whole point, for example, his first storyline against John Morrison back in the day, right? The whole storyline was like, I'm a star, right? I'm a Hollywood star. You were supposed to be the guy that was supposed to be like the Shawn Michaels of our tag team. But it turned out that I was the Shawn Michaels and you were the Marty Jannetty, right? That was the entire storyline. Then, Miz's subsidiary gimmick of like the guy who's married to Maurice, which is an extension of the same gimmick, I will admit, right? But him and Maurice have had these feuds, and now it's getting to the point where it's becoming like a thing, right? They're having the feud with Beth and Edge. They had the feud with John Cena and Nikki Bella, right? And the whole point is like they're supposed to be this like power couple that thinks very, very highly of themselves. You know what I mean? So that's what makes them interesting, and that's what makes them relevant. If their gimmick becomes part of the storyline. If John Cena and Nikki Bella wanted to have the same, same storyline with, I don't know, let's think like a made up couple, right? If let's say they put like R-Truth and I don't know Asuka together, right? It wouldn't work. You know, it only works because we know who the Miz is because of his greater Hollywood gimmick. Reason number 3, motherfucks, he has done his best to branch into the mainstream. Now, I will admit he hasn't been super successful, but he's been successful enough. Right? He's been on Dancing with the Stars, he has his own show, and he makes movies. I mean, what more could you fucking want, motherfuckers? Reason number 4, he's pretty good on the mic. Now, I'm not one of those people that thinks that Miz is the best on the mic, but I believe that Miz is definitely above average on the mic. You know what I'm saying? And by today's standards, he's one of the best on the mic, right? Because if you compare him to like Daniel Bryan and Dean Ambrose and Dolph Ziggler and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, he's like obviously a million times better than all those guys, right? He's not as good as, let's say, The Rock or Christian or Bubba Ray or, like other people that are historically been considered good on the mic. Or even CM Punk, if I'm being honest, right? But he's at least comparable to CM Punk, right? So there you have it, motherfucks. He's good on the mic. Reason number 5. He is almost always in a meaningful match at Wrestlemania. This is one of my favorite reasons. Every Wrestlemania, there are exceptions. There's been times when Miz has been in the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, right? But I remember when I went to Wrestlemania in Jersey when I was in law school, I remember seeing Miz versus Wade Barrett. It was the pre-show match, right? But it was for the Intercontinental title. So even in the pre-show, he's wrestling for the Intercontinental title. If the title had any kind of prestige, that would be on the main card. But we couldn't do that because we had to have Mark Henry versus Ryback. You know what I mean? Which I also enjoyed, if I'm being honest. So, but beyond that, for what he is, a guy that can easily be Intercontinental Champion at any given point, and that's been his ceiling for a while. I mean, he has moments, but that's kind of his ceiling, his mid-card guy, right? He will always have something to do on random WrestleManias. Like, it'll be like him versus Shane McMahon, right? Him versus Daniel Bryan in some capacity, right? He makes stars, and he makes feuds happen, and he is thus rewarded with matches at Mania, motherfucks. Reason number 9. Nobody thought he would amount to anything, and he did. This is probably my favorite reason, period, motherfucks. Nobody thought he would become anybody. But he became somebody, and he became a multiple-time WWE champion. But more on that later. Because there's something about that needs to be elaborated on, but it's its own reason because it's a different concept. Reason number... what was that? What reason did we just do? That was reason number 9. I guess I skipped 6, 7, and 8. Motherfuckers. What the fuck am I thinking here? My laptop went dark, that's why. Reason number 6, motherfuckers, going back in time. He has gained considerable size since his debut. When he debuted, he was chubby, out of shape, and quite honestly kind of small. Now, he feels like a main eventer. Now, again, I'm not going to sit here and say he's as big as Yokozuna, right? But he is bigger than Dolph Ziggler. Like, if you look at the Miz and Dolph Ziggler, you'd be like, okay, Dolph Ziggler's more cut, he's more lean. He might even lift more than Miz, but I would take Miz in a fight over Dolph Ziggler personally. Reason number 7. His world title run was memorable, and he felt like a star. I'm talking about the first one, of course. I think the second one was also memorable for a different reason, but it was memorable the first time around. He felt like a star. A lot of people, when he was U.S. champion, had the Money in the Bank, a lot of people were saying, this is it, motherfucks, the era of The Miz has begun. Now, were they wrong? Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say it was the era of The Miz, but they were right in the sense that he felt like a star. And at that time, it felt like he was about to make it. I still remember what I was doing when he beat Randy Orton for the money, for the WWE title, when he cashed in his Money in the Bank. I remember it because it was memorable. It was like, oh my god, this guy finally made it, you know? It felt good. It was like, I put it right up there with Benoit winning the world title at WrestleMania as one of my favorite moments ever. Because it was like, wow, this guy who wasn't supposed to do it, did it. You know, he had, like, and I know wrestling's fake, but nevertheless, there is a meritocracy involved, motherfucks. So it's always good to see that kind of shit. Or as JR would say, good to see that kind of shiznit. He keeps saying that, by the way. What the fuck is that all about? So, next up, reason number 8, motherfucks. The Miz, we just did that, motherfucks. Alright, there we go. Now we're back on track, so we're not going to fuck it up. Reason number 10, the promo against JBL and the boys. For those of you that don't know, it's a promo that Miz cut after he became WWE champion. I think it was after he became WWE champion. May have been after he became US champion, but it wouldn't make much sense. But I think he became WWE champion, and he cut a promo, and he said, when I started in this company, basically, like, people would force me to eat, like, outside the locker room because I spilled some chicken, crumbs, if you will, like some fried chicken crumbs on someone's bag, and they pretty much bullied him, and they didn't accept him as one of the boys or whatever, right? He's not one of the boys. The boys are a special club. Shut the fuck up, you know what I'm saying? So, like, they didn't accept him at all because he was this reality star who was trying to be a wrestler, and, to be fair, I get it, you know what I mean? Like, I get it. They pretty much thought, like, oh, this kid, like, has some sort of mainstream exposure, and he wants to show up and kind of, like, pretend that he's a big deal, kind of pretend that he's like a wrestler, even though he's probably not going to make it, And then he had become WWE champion, and he talked about the time when they like wouldn't let him into the locker room, and how JBL would bully him and say, "I look forward to your work, Miz," or whatever, right? Sarcastically, and now the Miz points to a locker room with his name on it, on a star. He says, "Now I have my own locker room, and the boys are still in the locker room." You know what I'm saying? I've become a star. I've transcended these jobbers, right? And not only was his promo on point, but it's also true, motherfucks. He didn't just transcend them as a star. Many of them he's transcended as a wrestler, alright? Miz is a good wrestler, motherfucks. Like, the boys. Who the fuck were the boys at this time? Like, Mr. Kennedy? You know what I'm saying? Miz is like 20 times better than Mr. Kennedy in everything. He's better on the mic. He's better in the ring. He has a better look. He has a better physique. He's more charismatic. He's been in better movies, even though they've both been in the Marine. He's better, So who are the boys, right? Like, Undertaker, obviously he's not as good as Undertaker, right? But this boys mentality of like, oh, you're not good enough to be a wrestler. You're not cool enough. Who the fuck decided Miz is not cool? Miz is cool. He's cooler than Sami Zayn. I'm sure he's one of the boys. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, motherfuckers. Reason number 11. He main evented WrestleMania and was fit to do so. As I said earlier, I know that the WrestleMania main event for WrestleMania, I think it was 25. I know that the real main event there was basically John Cena getting attacked by The Rock. Like the real feud was the beginning of John Cena and The Rock, right? Even though The Rock was not like in the match per se, right? The Miz was like a prop in that match, but it's still a main event at WrestleMania. He still made it, and he won at WrestleMania in the main event. How many WrestleMania main events have there been? Like 37, 38? I don't even know, motherfuckers. You know what I'm saying? And one of those main events has been won by The Miz. There's 37 other ones, but one of them has been won by The Miz. And he was fit to do so because John Cena, even though The Miz was presented as like a B-level champion, John Cena is going to go wrestle The Rock. Someone needed to get something out of this. And The Miz did. And he had, like I said, the title reign was memorable. So, him getting the rub is good, it's deserved, and it made sense, motherfuckers. Next up, his shtick with Maurice is entertaining. That's reason number 12. Now, I'm not going to say it's the most entertaining thing ever, but it's good. Maurice coming back in this capacity is good for business. I think she's kind of a draw because she's actually an attractive woman, and she's a legend, but she also still wrestles. So, legend, I use that term loosely, but you know what I mean. So, Maurice and The Miz are entertaining. They have a nice little niche. They can wrestle against any kind of couple-y thing. Like, for example, if Undertaker comes back, let's say, and him and Michelle McCool need a feud, you can always, or if Undertaker needs any kind of feud, you can always put him and Michelle versus Miz and Maurice. Now, obviously, Undertaker would destroy everyone in that match. But point is, he serves a nice purpose, motherfuckers. Reason number 13. Miz has been part of several memorable feuds. As I said earlier, motherfuckers, we have the Miz feud with John Morrison, right? That's the first one, I would say that it's the first memorable one. Then we have Miz and R-Truth versus Rock and Cena. Like the Awesome Truth generally, right? That was a memorable team, and their feud mainly was with Cena and The Rock, and it was a memorable feud. Next up, we have Miz versus Cena, of course. That was always memorable. Miz versus Ziggler, the 19 feuds that they had, right? Miz versus there's one versus Shane McMahon recently. That was memorable. And one of my personal favorites, Miz versus Bad Bunny. I know that John Morrison was involved too, but it was the Miz's feud, motherfucks. Miz versus Bad Bunny. All right. As you can see, the Miz has been standard in WWE, and he has had memorable moments and memorable feuds, which is a testament to how good of a wrestler he is, motherfuckers. Next up, this is another personal favorite. He has had longevity, motherfucks. If you look back to the Miz's debut, you look at the roster, I think you might see Miz. I think maybe Sheamus was around back then. I don't know if I know the Miz precedes Sheamus, but not that much. You know what I'm saying? But the Miz is one of the most tenured WWE wrestlers right now. It's pretty much like Miz and Randy Orton. I think they started around the same time. Miz, Orton, and eventually you have people like Ziggler and R-Truth. These people are now some of the longest employed people in WWE. R-Truth, motherfucks, in his second stint, is one of the longest employed WWE guys. You know? At least, as an active wrestler, right? So, there you have it, motherfuckers. He's had longevity and he's still relevant. You show me, with certainty, is Seth Rollins going to be around in 20 years? Probably not. Is he going to be around in 15 years? Probably not. Is he going to be around in 10 years? Probably not. I'd say he's got another 5-6 years left, before he does something better. Or before he becomes irrelevant, It's really difficult to stay this relevant for this long while also consistently wrestling, right? Consistently being on TV. I would bet that if you looked at the last, 15 years, The Miz has had more screen time in terms of matches than almost anyone. Almost anyone, motherfuckers. It's going to be either Miz or Orton. Maybe Cena, but he hasn't been around for the last few years. He's going to be one of the top ones. Maybe Ziggler. I doubt it. I'd say it's a Miz. But, you know what I'm saying? He's had longevity, and he's had a good career thus far. And it's not even over yet, motherfucks. Reason number 15. He will go down as the best Intercontinental Champion of all time. Now, I don't know exactly what the statistics are, but I know that The Miz is very close, I think, to beating Jericho. I'm going to look it up, motherfucks. What's it called? He's very close to beating Jericho in one of the records. And he owns another one of the records. I think Miz owns most reigns or something like that. He owns the most amount of reigns. Or he has the longest time cumulative or something like that. Or he's in the situation of beating both of those motherfucks. So I think it's clear that Miz is going to go down as the number one. Yeah, so I see right here. Pedro Morales has had 2 reigns for a combined 619 days. Miz has had 8 reigns for a combined 597 days. Which means that The Miz needs a 20-day title reign to become the most important IC champion of all time. This is going to happen. They're obviously just waiting, motherfucks. They're obviously just waiting to determine, when the time is to give Miz this storyline. Because it's going to be a storyline. Because I just looked right here, and it says that Jericho is a 9-time Intercontinental Champion. Miz is an 8-time Intercontinental Champion. So when Miz wins it one more time, you understand me? When Miz wins the title one more time, he will have tied Jericho's record, right? They might even do a feud where he gets 1 day away from winning, from breaking Pedro Morales' record and ties Jericho's reign, and then the feud and the storyline can be Miz is going for his 10th Intercontinental title reign. That's going to be awesome. I look forward to that, cuckolds. So that's, I think, a testament to how much the company values Miz. It's very, very important to understand that too, motherfuckers. They value him. I keep talking about this. I keep saying Mark Henry deserves everything he got because he was a company man. He worked his ass off, and then eventually he was rewarded with his title run. Same thing with The Miz. He worked his ass off. He keeps doing these things. He keeps having matches with like Shane McMahon. He keeps filling in important roles. He keeps earning money, for the company, right? And then eventually they're like, all right, we need a transitional champion to drop the title. So it goes from Drew to Bobby Lashley. And they're like, who do we want to reward with a one-day title reign or a 1 week or a 1 month title reign? How about The Miz, motherfuckers? Rey Mysterio, same thing. Rey Mysterio was like a multiple-time world heavyweight champion. And then there was a point when CM Punk left the company that he had like a 1 hour WWE title reign. He beat The Miz, ironically enough, or coincidentally enough, I should say. He beat The Miz and was like WWE champion for like an episode of Raw until Cena challenged him and Cena beat him. And Cena and these are recognized title reigns. So that's pretty fucking badass if you ask me, motherfucks. And I was really happy for Mysterio then too. And Miz made it to the finals. So you see what I'm saying, motherfucks? In that one, they chose Rey Mysterio, but in the finals, it was him versus Miz for the guy that's going to be a 1 hour champion. It's still a title reign, right? But why was it him and The Miz? Because it makes sense, motherfucks. These are the two guys that deserve it, motherfucks. Anyways, let's see here. Miz, let's see here. What do we leave out? Do we skip some other shit, motherfuckers? Okay, let's just go with reason number 16. There we go. He can perform when called upon. It's simple as that. You can put this guy into any program and he'll do well. This has been shown time and time again. He can you can take him from obscurity and be like, all right, we've hired John Morrison. What do we do with John Morrison? Put him with The Miz. That'll always work. Boom, it works just like that, motherfuckers. Same thing with Daniel Bryan. That was another memorable feud, by the way. That's like one of the best feuds Daniel Bryan's ever been a part of. Him versus The Miz, the ongoing feud. Think about that. Daniel Bryan joined, right, as a rookie. He was supposed to be an up-and-comer. And The Miz was his pro. And look at it now, motherfucks. The Miz was WWE champion last year. Daniel Bryan is now in AEW in the developmental leagues. And not to mention the fact that in the middle of this time period, Daniel Bryan took like a 7-year hiatus while The Miz was busting his ass. Compare Daniel Bryan to The Miz, and you tell me who's better, motherfucks. Get the fuck out of here with that bullshit. Pisses me off, actually. So next up, we have the reason number 17. He does good PR and generates revenue for the WWE outside of wrestling. Also known as drawing dimes, motherfucks. Drawing dimes. The Miz can do a movie. Hey, it might sell 10,000 DVD copies, but obviously they keep making them, which means they're profitable enough, motherfucks. You know what I'm saying? The Miz goes on Dancing with a Star, and he's introduced as former WWE champion, I'm sure, The Miz. I didn't watch that shit, obviously. But I'm sure that he points out to the WWE, and I'm sure when he's dancing, he says, I'm sure this happened. He probably got low scores in a dance, and he'll say, I thought WWE was tough, but dancing is tougher, right? Nevertheless, corny as it may be, he plugs WWE. Miz is a charismatic and charming guy. Someone could watch him with Dancing with the Stars and be like, wait a minute, what's this WWE guy? What's this WWE thing? What the hell's happening currently in WWE? Or perhaps even, what the fuck is the WWE? Because nobody watches anymore, right? And they tune in and they're like, oh, that's the Miz guy that I saw dancing. Well, this actually ain't so bad. I think I'll stick around and watch. And then afterwards, like, holy shit, who's this Drew McIntyre guy? He's badass. Oh, wow, they got some women wrestling too, The point is, he can create new fans. He generates revenue for the company. Reason number 18. He is a draw otherwise. I think The Miz is a draw, period. Now, I understand. A lot of his drawing powers are attributed to the previous reason, but I think he is a draw. I think people look forward to seeing The Miz. When they buy a ticket, they're like, man, we get to see The Miz. If The Miz is a match on the card, you're like, wow, that's cool, The Miz match, right? Nobody cares about Tony Nese, right? But people care about The Miz. Reason number 19. He seems like a chill guy, as evidenced by this weird MTV show that he did. Not Road Rules or whatever, but there was this show where, it was a weird show. Basically, they have, fans, or not, I guess anti-fans of something, right? Haters, if you will. And they, say, I hate this person. And they have them meet that person, and the person tries to, show them, yo, I'm a human being. So there's this, fat dude, and he wanted to meet The Miz because he was like, I hate The Miz. He's a piece of shit. Miz appears, and then the guy tries to attack The Miz. And The Miz doesn't even beat his ass. He tries to just beat his ass. Right? Nevertheless, The Miz spends 30 minutes of the show, right? Trying to tell this guy, yo, I'm not a piece of shit. And the guy's like, I still hate you. Miz's like, all right, I tried my best, right? Seems like a chill guy. Came off really cool in that episode. Reason number 20, motherfuckers. Speaking of MTV shows, cuckolds, he did Road Rules and has leveraged it into a career elsewhere. I think it's safe to say I'm not a fan of Road Rules and I'm not knowledgeable on all that shit, right? But I think it's safe to say that he's the most successful guy or girl even to come out of that show. And that says a lot about him if you ask your boy, motherfuckers. Reason number 21. He carried, or at least helped carry, ECW when they had 0 stars. You know, when you had like Kevin Thorne and shit like that, and Elijah Burke, they were treating him like a jobber. You know, like Matt Striker was one of the main stars. The Miz came in, and him and Morrison like saved ECW for a little bit. When Morrison beat CM Punk for the title, that was great because it legitimized Morrison, and the Miz came over to become a tag team. It was all cool. Then next reason, motherfuckers, reason number 22. Oh, that all happened because of Benoit, by the way. Benoit was like busy, like, you know, killing his family like a piece of shit that he was, right? And then killing himself. So then John Morrison took his space in the match. Benoit was going to be ECW champion. So anyways, I digress. Reason number 22. The Miz is legitimately cool, motherfuckers. He's a cool guy. You see him and you're like, alright, this guy's not a geek. Simple as that, motherfuckers. Simple as that. You look at him, you compare him, just physically. You just look at him physically. You look at his face, you compare his face to the face of Big E, of Xavier Woods, Seth Rollins, motherfuckers. You know what I'm saying? The Usos. You look at them and you're like, alright, The Miz got laid more than all these guys, right? And probably still gets laid more than all these guys. The Miz is cooler than all those guys. The Usos, I'm sure they're like these two guys who always wanted to fit in with the black kids, but the black kids were like, dude, you're not black. Why are you acting like you're black, right? Because that's how people talk in high school, motherfuckers. And they're probably geeks. Xavier, Kofi, Big E. I mean, these guys are just anime nerds, you know? And then you have Seth Rollins, probably the worst of them all, just a complete geek, right? The Miz, on the other hand, comes off as a cool jock type dude. He's more like The Rock and less like the Usos. He's more like Rikishi. I hate to say it, because Rikishi is, Rikishi's not cool, but he's cooler than the Usos, right? He's more Rikishi than he is Solo Solofar, whatever the fuck that guy's name is in NXT. The Miz is just a cool guy. You see him, you're like, this is a cool dude, motherfuckers. And he's a tough guy too, as evidenced by the fact that he didn't quit like a bitch. You see all these kind of geeky type motherfuckers, you know, they go in there like JBL bullies him. They're like, I quit, you know. The Miz is like, fuck that. I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show you what happened to fucking Miz, motherfuckers. Reason 23. MJF wants to be the Miz, but it's not as good. That's one of my favorite reasons. MJF is obviously a Miz ripoff, but the problem is that MJF is in AEW, and therefore he can just indiscriminately say, I'm better than everyone. And they know it, right? But like, I'm better than everyone, and he carries himself as if he is like not the Miz because he's supposed to be this like once in a generation talent. But the facts are what the facts are. He's not a better wrestler than the Miz. He's not better on the mic than the Miz. He's not better looking than the Miz. He's not as charismatic as the Miz. He's not as cool as the Miz, right? And like the Miz is better than him in every possible way. And I bet you that when MJF was in high school, he was like a mid-level dork. People looked at me like, you're a dork, dude. Beat it. Don't talk to me like we're equals. You're a boring motherfucker. You're a nerd. But The Miz would probably be bullying MJF were they to be in high school at the same time, motherfuckers. Reason 24. If he went to AEW, he would have been a 19 or 25-time world champion by now because he actually is a real star. If AEW, company AEW, were to poach someone like The Miz for their show, he would be treated completely differently than if they poached Miro or Aleister Black because The Miz is an actual star. And reason 25, as usual, my absolute favorite. Reason 25 why Miz is awesome. He has heart, motherfucks. He's got heart. And you can't teach heart. The Miz is a perfect example of keep grinding, bust your ass, use what God gave you to become what you want to become. You know, no disrespect to Rene Dupree or Palmer Cannon or Mauro Ranallo or all these guys that quit because JBL bullied them. But if they had stuck with it, motherfucks, Rene Dupree was like a once-in-a-lifetime talent. Remember Rene Dupree? He was 19, like jacked like a motherfucker, you know? He was like a handsome guy, charismatic in his own right. You know, and he was 19, motherfucks, and he had all these attributes. He was that jacked at 19. Rene Dupree had the possibility to be the best wrestler of all time. But, and again, I don't judge him. He was 19. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's different being 19 and being bullied by a grown-ass JBL, right? But he was bullied by JBL, and he bounced. A lot of wrestlers have bounced or have bitched and moaned or have complained. Luchasaurus is one of them, like Bill DeMott bullied me, you know? Again, I'm not saying you should stand for it, right? But sometimes when you stand for it, you become the Miz. And at other times, when you don't stand for it, unfortunately, whether it's fair or not, it's not fair. I mean, let's be honest, it's not fair. But if you don't stand for it, you end up with a dinosaur mask on AEW, right? The Miz has heart. He took it. He took the abuse, and not the abuse of some pussy ass like nowadays bullying. I'm talking about 90s, like late 90s, early 2000s bullying. The Miz went there in the early 2000s, and they bullied his ass. But what did he do? He didn't quit, I'll tell you that, motherfuckers, because The Miz rules. And these have been 25 reasons why The Miz kicks ass, capped off by the main reason. Heart, motherfuckers. You can't teach heart. Now go fuck your mothers.